Hello, this is Amy Martz from Martz Law, and today I want to talk to you about Utah dispute resolution procedures for special education law. The most important thing you can understand about special education in Utah is that it is negatively impacted through a lack of funding overall for education. So at Martz Law, we try to advance education through advocacy for children with disabilities, but we're really advocating for everyone in the system because Utah ranks 50th out of 51 states, including DC, for per pupil expenditures. It would take an additional $5,375 of funding for every single K 12 student in Utah to just barely reach the national average of education funding. That's how far away we are. The most significant impact of insufficient funding is failure to meet the educational needs of students who have disabilities. Students with disabilities should not suffer because schools lack the necessary resources. You can find resources on my website about what is the IDEA, and this is the link to the latest Andrew case, which is the latest Supreme Court ruling on special education. So there are federal laws, including IDEA, that provide protections for the rights of students with disabilities who must be offered a free and appropriate education in the least restrictive environment. The school and parents should work together to make a unique IEP, or individualized education program, for the student, and it should include ambitious goals with challenging learning objectives. Here's a link to a great YouTube website or YouTube video that talks in specifics about how the new case Andrew from 2017 impacts the way we make IEP goals. The problem in Utah is that the systems that we've set up to provide checks and balances for implementation of IDEA are not working. Since 2008, Utah has been in program improvement for failing to comply with IDEA procedures to ensure that students with disabilities have meaningful academic and social outcomes. And you can click here on the UPIP's website to find the Utah Program Improvement Planning System. It's a lot of paperwork, and I don't see a lot of action occurring in real life, but you can see what the goal is supposed to be. The Utah State Board of Education has the responsibility to correct any noncompliance with IDEA among Utah schools. So, supposedly, school parents can seek help from USBE by filing a state complaint, which is an investigation, or a due process hearing, which is like a mini trial. However, during the 2021-2022 school year, only 23 students were able to find and use a state complaint to report a school's noncompliance. And even worse, in 17 years, not one parent or student has won a due process hearing in Utah. The system is really broken, and vulnerable children are paying the price. Here is a link to the state complaint form if you'd like to try one out for your student. And this is actually data from 2020 going backwards. I was involved in a state complaint and a due process hearing this year, so I knew those updated statistics. But what's happening is there are a number of state complaints filed. Some of them are withdrawn or dismissed, but most of the state complaints go forward to a report by the investigator. So the completion rates are here, and they're pretty good. One of the things that USBE will do is they will find violations of IDEA on behalf of the child and identify them. So these are the percentages of times that the investigator found something that the school was doing wrong and at least required training or identified it or gave them instructions for correcting it. What you don't get as a parent at this level is really much of a remedy. So, in one case, I know the family was given 7 hours of tutoring to remedy the deficit that was created by the school. So, although they're willing to call out the school and name what's gone wrong, they are not offering any true resolutions to the problem for this particular child. The other process you have an opportunity to access is called a due process hearing. This is also administered or set up by USBE, and you can only do one or the other. So if you file for an IDEA complaint and a due process goes first. But this is a link to the form for filing for a due process hearing. These are the number of hearing requests filed each of these years. Almost all of them, or I would say a strong majority, are withdrawn or dismissed. Every year there's a few that are still pending, and I'm not sure if like this number, this two is reflected in this filing or how those are represented. But I was previously under the assumption that most of the due process hearings didn't get finalized because they were settled. But I was really surprised to find that that has not been the case, at least since 2012, where predominantly most of them are just plain withdrawn or the hearing officer dismissed them without ever having a hearing. So these are the numbers of fully adjudicated, means they went all the way through a due process hearing and the hearing officer made a ruling, a written ruling. And this is the percent of completion over these years. And every single one of the due process hearings, the finder of fact said that the school did not violate IDEA. So we clearly have a problem where our complaint systems aren't functioning because, if you've got this many complaints, and that's a really small number compared to other states, but that not one of the schools in those situations has done anything to violate IDEA, it's very questionable. So resources for parents and students with disabilities are really scarce. If you go to the Utah State Bar Licensed Lawyer Directory, you can't even search for education or special ed or IDEA or schools even. And attorneys who specialize in the area of education law almost exclusively serve school districts and charter schools. The Disability Law Center focuses on advancing policy and law on areas mostly of access, and the Utah Parent Center focuses on training parents new to disabilities. And by policy, they take a non confrontational approach with districts who contribute to funding their advocates. The result is like this void where parents have nowhere left to turn. So, what we really need in Utah is some advocacy with teeth. Like, there's just nothing keeping districts from making mistakes and not needing to fix those. So, I take educational law cases if you'd like to reach out, but we need more than just me. And so I'm really trying hard as a firm to establish a new nonprofit organization. We're calling it the Utah or the IUP Student Center. And we're trying to expand the services that I've been providing by bringing in more staff. But we are actively looking for donations or investments or anyone who wants to help as a volunteer. But we're really working to try to expand education opportunities for children with disabilities and protect the rights of parents and students. We're going to provide expert, cutting edge ideas for helping students and identify that non-compliance that's happening under IDEA. But ultimately, we want to seek increased resources for education in Utah because schools aren't with keeping those services from our kids because they're mean and grumpy. They don't have enough resources to go around. And so ultimately, the concept of school funding is what is driving the mistakes in IDEA. And if we can solve the one, I feel we could make some great progress toward the other. So hope that helps explain. If you have questions, feel free to give me a call. My number is 801 231 0286. Thanks so much and have a great day.